Alright, take 3. I forgot to put a card in there, so a couple times I started this video and then I filled the internal memory and it stopped recording. So, hello again, cadre. Wow, what a difference just even 18 hours can make. A lot higher energy today, like night and day. Good and bad, left and right, red and blue. Let's get into it. So, I guess it's Martin Luther King Day. And I thought, as usual, let's peer into the shadows a little bit and not just, if you always stay in the sunlight, you become oblivious to what's occurring in the shadows. And history has a way of reforming the story. There's a lot that happened in the civil rights movement, and the leaders, the historians, largely us white people, have pulled the history into two parts, the good and the bad, the yin and the yang, and we've generally affixed all the good stuff that even us whites, even some of us that hate hippies or whatever, can appreciate: the nonviolence, the well-intentions, the diversity praised, and we've affixed that to the image of Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. The hashtag Dr. Reverend Martin Luther King Jr. And the bad stuff, we throw at Malcolm X. And that's kind of a shorthand. It's another example of reductionism at work in our culture. We want the hero in white that wears the badge, and we want the villain in black that waxes the mustache. But it's important to remember that in every hero there is darkness, and in every villain there is some good. We need to remember that for the sake of empathy and understanding and openness and listening. So I thought I'd take this moment to read some quotes. I've read through a few of these, but I pulled up a lot more from Martin Luther King Jr. And I probably won't spend too much time analyzing or reacting to these because I want to get through them quick and just throw them out there. But these are both lists that focus on this idea of some of the lesser known quotes that the mainstream media may not want you to remember. Some of the lines that may be pushed into the subtext of history. First, let's go through a list of 9 that I'm getting from alternet.org in their civil liberties section. Why is equality so assiduously avoided? Why does white America delude itself, and how does it rationalize the evil it retains? From Where Do We Go From Here, 1967. Second quote. I contend that the cry of black power is, at bottom, a reaction to the reluctance of white power to make the kind of changes necessary to make justice a reality for the Negro. I think we've got to see that a riot is the language of the unheard. And what is it that America has failed to hear? It has failed to hear that the economic plight of the Negro poor has worsened over the last few years. From an interview with Mike Wallace, 1966. Third quote, "But it is not enough for me to stand before you tonight and condemn riots. It would be morally irresponsible for me to do that without, at the same time, condemning the contingent, intolerable conditions that exist in our society. These conditions are the things that cause individuals to feel that they have no other alternative than to engage in violent rebellions to get attention. And I must say tonight that a riot is the language of the unheard. And what is it that America has failed to hear? It has failed to hear that the promises of freedom and justice have not been met. And it has failed to hear that large segments of white society are more concerned about tranquility and the status quo than about justice and humanity." From The Other America in 1968. This builds upon the last quote. Another one. "When machines and computers, profit motives, and property rights are considered more important than people, the giant triplets of racism, extreme materialism, and militarism are incapable of being conquered." 1967. Revolution of Values. And we need to think about this now, I'll tell you that. With the rise of YouTube, Facebook, fake news being sorted to us and chosen by Facebook. I'm going to read this one more time. "When machines and computers, profit motives, and property rights are considered more important than people, the giant triplets of racism, extreme materialism, and militarism are incapable of being conquered." Whew. All right, next one. "Again, we have deluded ourselves into believing the myth that capitalism grew and prospered out of the Protestant ethic of hard work and sacrifice. The fact is that capitalism was built on the exploitation and suffering of black slaves and continues to thrive on the exploitation of the poor, both black and white, both here and abroad." From The Three Evils of Society, 1967. That's another dense one. It deals with the international issues that Trump is struggling with, and it deals with the domestic issues that Trump seems to ignore when he focuses on shithole countries. Sorry, hashtag shithole countries. Yeah. Demonetization, don't care. "A nation that continues year after year to spend more money on military defense than on programs of social uplift is approaching spiritual death." From Beyond Vietnam in 1967. "The problems of racial injustice and economic injustice cannot be solved without a radical redistribution of political and economic power." A radical redistribution of political power and economic power. Also from The Three Evils of Society, 1967. "The evils of capitalism are as real as the evils of militarism and evils of racism." I guess that links to The Three Evils of Society. From a Southern Christian Leadership Conference speech in 1967. Here's a long one. Whites, it must frankly be said, are not putting in a similar mass effort to re-educate themselves out of their racial ignorance. It is an aspect of their sense of superiority that the white people of America believe they have to listen. So they have so little to learn. Sorry, I'm trying to read this too quickly. It's an aspect of their sense of superiority that the white people of America believe they have so little to learn. The reality of substantial investment to assist Negroes in the 20th century, adjusting to Negro neighbors and genuine school integration, is still a nightmare for all too many white Americans. These are the deepest causes for contemporary abrasions between the races. Loose and easy language about equality, resonant resolutions about brotherhood fall pleasantly on the ear. But for the Negro there is a credibility gap he cannot overlook. He remembers that with each modest advance, the white population promptly raises the argument that the Negro has come far enough. Each step forward accents an ever-present tendency to backlash. And if we can't talk about backlash right now, where do we go from here? It's an excerpt from Where Do We Go From Here, 1967. Alright, another not long one. This one from a letter from a Birmingham jail in 1963. Oh, it's an earlier one. First, I must confess that over the past few years I have been gravely disappointed with the white moderate. I have almost reached the regrettable conclusion that the Negro's great stumbling block in his stride toward freedom is not the white citizens'